Hi, if I was to have a time machine as a running coach and I could take you in that time machine and take you to your next marathon or half marathon, and you and I could watch you run that marathon or half marathon, and it's the best marathon that you've ever run, and you're like, wow, And then at the end, I turn to you and I go, do you know what? You actually trained less hard for that marathon than any other marathon or half marathon you've done. Actually, your training was easier. Would you believe me? Would you think it was possible? But would you also be slightly curious as to, oh, that sounds interesting? If so, that's pretty much what I'm going to be sharing in this video. How to minimize your effort and maximize your marathon performance. Now, before we go any further, let's get into some facts and fiction. Running a marathon or half marathon does take time and effort. I'm not saying that. I once did a Facebook ad for my Marathon Maximiser, which I'll mention at the end of this video. And I sort of said that you could train for a marathon in 4 hours a week. Now, mathematically, that's true. And also, it's not true of everybody. Now, a lot of people reacted quite strongly to that. Quite rightly, it's quite a strong statement. However, my point was that most people overestimate the time it takes, or the fiction is that they train a lot harder than they have to. The problem for most runners is they put their effort actually in the wrong place, or not in the right place enough time, so to speak, leading to inefficient training. So what I'm going to be looking at today is no magic wand, but it is in effect how, as a coach, I help runners achieve more with less effort, with targeting the effort and not wasting valuable time. I think time management is an overused word, but how you use your training time in a marathon or half marathon is massively important. And what I see is that many runners, if they're running off a generic training plan, which I'm not here to knock, but what I am saying is they don't always have confidence in the plan, or perhaps confidence in themselves, which means that not something and then they stop and then they never quite commit fully. It's like throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. This uncertainty results in wasted time, both physically and mentally. So really, when I'm talking about throughout this video, in effect, is ways to become more certain of the kind of results that you can get, so that you get more predictability from your training and less wasted time. One of the major areas I think runners really come unstuck with their training plans is paralysis by data analysis. I'm not saying that again. I believe there's a strong difference between objective data like from your running watch or from your heart rate monitor, which is very useful, and subjective data is basically how you feel during a run, or how you can kind of use your body to decide if you're running hard enough in a run, how you feel after a run, how you recover, all these factors. And often I kind of get accused by runners of being a bit of a Luddite with technology, which is actually not true. What I am a bit of a devil's advocate, and I'm always looking for balance. And most runners, when they arrive to us, are slaves to their technology. They aren't using it, it's using them. And they're using that objective data to a point where it is getting in the way of their training, where it becomes almost like a form of procrastination. And then it makes their training very inefficient. Versus, like I sometimes say to runners, just go out on your easy run and listen to your breathing, and can you talk? And they come back to me, my heart rate was this, my pace was that. And these are all important objective data points. But if they're getting in the way of your training, if they're making you anxious, it's taking the fun out of it. Sometimes stripping all that back and just getting down to how did it feel? That simple can have a profound impact on how you perform. And as we're going to come to, the kind of durations and intensities that you perform your training at, which is really important. So it really does come down to the Goldilocks scenario: too hot, too cold, just right, with training intensities and durations. Many runners run their easy runs too hard. What I mean by that, when I say too hard, they run them at a pace where they're increasing their risk of injury, but actually decreasing the likelihood that they're going to get the adaptations that they're actually training for. So when you're running easy, if you're running conversationally, then you are running in probably zone 1 or 2, roughly speaking, long as you can hold a prolonged conversation. Many runners, like I say, will utilize pace, which is a man-made metric, not an internal metric, or heart rate, which is an internal metric, but is very influenced by external factors, and also will have lag times. So it's not instant. By the way that you feel is instant. Like I've mentioned many times, running up and down a hill are 2 different experiences that your body realizes straight away. A heart rate monitor will always be lagging behind that. I'm not knocking those things. What I would suggest to you as a coach would be that you use them as secondary metrics in your training. Use your heart rate monitor for your easy runs as your secondary metric, and pace primarily in your speed runs, but use it as a secondary metric. And the main metric is have a 1 to 5 effort score that you use in your main way of working out the intensity of your runs. Also, what tends to go wrong is the duration of runs. So on speed workouts, many runners coming to us are doing their speed workouts for too long. It means that they usually can't keep up the intensities at the higher end they need to make the adaptations, but they are prolonging the workout, you've guessed it again, to increase the risk of injury, burnout, and so they're not getting that duration right. Yet again, the way to kind of know, apart from your plan, is how you're recovering from those workouts. Next day, is it taking you 3 days to feel right after a workout? You don't need a watch to tell you if you can't sit down on the toilet. So, you listen to your body. Sometimes I often say to runners when they say they've got niggles, I say, you've got a niggle that and then will become a nag. Your body will whisper to you. Then you can keep going, and then it will become a nightmare and it will scream at you. So your watch, your Whoop, your heart rate variability device can tell you all this. And I'm not saying it can't, but subjective data will probably tell you it a lot quicker. So being able to utilize that means that you get the intensities of your runs better, you get the durations more on point, because you need to meet yourself where you're presently at. Even the hallowed long run, if you're finding that challenging initially, you can spread some of that duration out throughout the week, reducing the fatigue factor and also reducing your risk to injury. A big thing that I chuckle at when runners come on board is most of them come on board because they want to get better with coaching, and they know instinctively in their minds that to do that something has to change. But quite interestingly, then quite often when we're changing things, there is a kind of almost Groundhog Day feeling where runners are actually trying to change things back to how they are. Habits are powerful things, and I call it the Groundhog Day syndrome because many runners know they need to change, or they're not getting the results they want. They're in a training rut. However, are they changing what they're doing? And habit is such a powerful thing that if a runner is uncertain, they're more likely to stay with what they know, even if it's not working, versus changing something. And this is where, and I'm sorry to kind of make a pitch for the home side here, but where a coach or a mentor can help you break out of these patterns, because they're involved, but they're not as committed as you are, i.e. they're not you, and they can see this recurrence. I've got some runners that will if I let them, would keep doing the same thing, recovering from injury, going out easier. The moment they start feeling better, they start running too hard, they get injured again, and they turn around and say things like, speed workouts, they don't work, I get injured every time. And you look at what they're doing and they're just doing them for too long, they're doing them for too hard, or that when they arrive at a speed workout, they're too tired already because their easy runs have been too hard. So there's this Groundhog Day thing, and if you're not going to get a coach, at least stand back from yourself and look and be honest with yourself. Are you in this Groundhog Day? So in conclusion, what I'm actually saying here is that you can minimize your effort and maximize your return. You need to have a plan that you have confidence in and really realize that it's a map. And the thing that will be your compass and your guide can be things like technology, like your watch, your heart rate monitor, but you would primarily get quicker feedback and more accurate feedback of where you presently are and the kind of intensities and durations you should be training at, from running to fill, and using those other metrics as secondary metrics, and using that feedback to know when to rest and if the plan is a fit for you at this present point based on your recoveries. And also having some sort of external loop, even if it's not a coach, even if it's writing a journal, can help you. Thanks for watching the video. And I know some of what I've outlined sounds obvious, but when I coach runners and runners come to me and we're going through where they've been, where they want to go, and what the gap is, pretty much what I've shared is where we're at most of the time. And I think most runners initially there must be more than that. There must be some magic sauce. And if there is a magic sauce, it's obviously having some experience of the problems that other runners face, but it's also that objectivity to be able to stand back and see those patterns and make adjustments in the pattern. If that sounds something of an interest to you and you're thinking, man, jumping in with a running coach is a bit premature, or that's not for me, then I do a free 10-day workshop called the Marathon Maximiser, where we look at your present training and we really look at the kind of way, similar to what I've said in this video, the intensities, durations, how you can adjust your plan to maximize literally your marathon training so that you can sort of circumnavigate your training rut and have a much better chance of turning up on race day confident of your race day result. If that's of interest, that would be below this video. We run them about once a month. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Even if you don't agree with everything I've said, I'd really be interested, actually if you disagree, even more interested to know what your thoughts are, and share them in the comments. Anyway, bye for now.